You are a Locked On Braves postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Braves postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. Grant McCauley and Jake Mastriani with you after a very busy, very exhilarating, and maybe flat-out exhausting weekend for the Atlanta Braves, who were able to cool down one of the hottest teams, probably the hottest team in all of baseball, taking 2 out of 3 from the Cincinnati Reds after their 7-6 win on Sunday. We got lots to talk about in this edition of the show, and we're going to get to all of it in just a moment. But I want to remind you to subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta here on YouTube and to Locked On Braves, wherever you get your podcasts. Jake, it's been a couple of days since last we were able to sit down and do one of these, and the Braves have been very busy. They lost that opener in dramatic and crazy fashion, 11-10. That was quite a ball game. But the last 2 games in this trilogy of games this weekend were also pretty good, and they also just happened to be Braves wins.
They did, and we'll obviously like those a lot better. But this series in general, we said it after Friday night's game, this is just a treat for baseball. And I think if you lasted through that weekend, if you weren't a Braves or a Reds fan, you probably enjoyed it more. But it, as you mentioned, got kind of exhausting with just how many blows these teams were trading back and forth all weekend. It
really was. Every one of these games was kind of like a prize fight. I know I was looking through the comments of the one that we did on Friday, the postcast, and somebody was saying Hagler Hearns, and yeah, it certainly felt like there was a lot of hard-hitting offense in this series because there certainly was. If you were a pitcher, I would imagine for either side, you're probably pretty happy to go ahead and move on from this series, particularly the Braves. They get to leave Great American Ballpark and don't have to go back there anytime soon. But I know Brian Snitker said after the game, look, I'm too old to do 162 of these games here, or 81 games here anyway, as far as home games are concerned. But, hey, the Reds, they took it to the Braves each and every game. They had a chance to win each of the games. Took the opener, pushed their winning streak to 12, but the Braves snapped it on Saturday, and then Atlanta took 2 out of 3 on Sunday. It was game number 77 of the season. Braves reached the 50-win plateau with this victory, 50-27, 7 runs, 9 hits, an error, 13 men left on base. There were plenty of opportunities. Reds are 41-37, still in first place in the NL Central, 6 runs, 11 hits, 1 error. They left 10 on base. Charlie Morton was able to grind through 5 innings, pick up the win. He's 7-6. Randy Wynn takes a loss in relief for Cincinnati. He's 0-1. And Raisel Iglesias has been but not break. 12th save of the year for him. 3 hours, 28 minutes this game took. 40,140 paid to see it. So I don't know if it was officially a sellout on Sunday or not, but Jake, fans packed the ballpark in Cincinnati. There was a Braves contingent certainly that was vocal. We could hear it at times, but it would appear that the Reds have really kind of captured the imagination of the home fans because they haven't had a lot to cheer about the past few years.
And you can see why. I mean, it's a really exciting team. I think I saw where it was the most attended 3-game series they've had in the history of that ballpark, which is just insane to think about. So, yeah, I mean, the town is obviously, again, for good reason, really excited about what this team is doing. And then you got to, I think, obviously a lot of it has to do with the team. They're playing a team that, as we said on Friday, I think it's the best team in the National League for sure, and maybe one of the best teams in all of baseball. So this is a good test for the Reds. And even though they lost this series, I feel like this says a lot about where they are and how well that team is playing right now. Obviously, I know they have some pitching injuries, and as the Braves do, and they're hoping to, kind of shore that up and get going. But I mean, that offense, it was just unreal this weekend. You can talk about the ballpark and the factors it plays, and it certainly does play one, but still the at-bats that Reds team had up and down the lineup were really impressive.
Yeah, it was a whole weekend worth of those, too. This was not just a bunch of kind of boom or bust guys where they had to hit just a ton of home runs. I mean, they hit their fair share, and so did the Braves for that matter. That's kind of why it got that heavyweight fight, appeal to it, or that's the way it was described. But I don't know. I looking at this Reds team, I don't feel like, and I know the word gets thrown around a lot over the course of the season, was demoralizing loss. That's brutal. That can't happen. I don't think the Reds should have left that series feeling like anything was demoralizing, most certainly. And they should feel like, hey, look, we can go toe-to-toe with anybody. And if this club does happen to get reinforced at some point after the All-Star break, they might be a little bit tougher to deal with. And maybe these two teams meet again a little bit later this year. But let's get back on task here. Charlie Morton, 5 innings, 3 earned runs for him, 7 hits, 3 walks, and 7 strikeouts. It got a little bit wonky at times for him, but he was able to at least keep it on the rails, get through 5 innings. Picking up the win for Charlie, that's a good thing for him, for the Braves. You'll take all the wins you can get no matter who gets the credit for it. 103 pitches, though, Jake, to get through the 5 innings, and I wasn't sure that he was even going to get a 5th, at least the way things were looking. in that fourth inning.
It was, I mean, you had to have it. I mean, you had the two rookies in the first two games, didn't make it through 5 innings. You were really hoping your veteran could do so. And you're right, after 3 innings, I thought there's no way we're going to go a whole series and not have a starter get 5 innings. So a lot of credit to Charlie Morton for gutting that out. And at the end of the day, 5 innings, 3 earned in this series out of your starter, he'll take that. And some tough luck for Charlie in this one. He did walk 3 batters, but he only gave up 2 hard hit balls in this game. So, a lot of it was just some bad ball luck, some inconsistencies, which he's struggled with this year up and down throughout for sure. But again, just the ability for him to push through all of that and get through 5 innings, save that bullpen a little bit. I thought that was huge in this game with how this series has played out. Any inning that you can save the bullpen in this series felt like a huge one. And so to be able to do that, I thought it was big for Charlie Morton.
Yeah, every single out felt like it was just a little bit more valuable in a series like this where you were getting forced to kind of max things out in the bullpen. And we saw it a little bit later on when somebody wasn't able to finish their inning and you got to go to the next guy a little bit earlier than you want to. It kind of changes the plan for how you're looking to set things up and close things out in the later innings. You did say Charlie Morton was able to avoid hard contact for the most part. He was. I saw where he almost got the hardest contact of the day because he ran into the middle of the mascot race and almost got trucked by a couple of the Cincinnati mascot participants in that. So fortunately, Charlie was able to avoid that, able to avoid any of the after effects that could have been lingering from that, and able to get through 5 innings in this one. Nick Anderson gave up a run, couple of walks for A.J. Minter. He left those runners on base. Joe Jimenez gave up a double. That scored another run as that got the Reds up to their 6th on the day. But fortunately, the Atlanta offense was up to the task of outscoring the Reds for a 2nd consecutive day. Another 1-run win, so every single one of these wins is important. We saw a little bit earlier, just to kind of close out what we're talking about with the pitching side and with Charlie Morton, a grounder by Elly De La Cruz to first base. Matt Olson decides to go home, a bang-bang play. Sean Murphy gets the tag on. Hand was just above the plate, sliding across. Replay review, call stood. That run, it turned out, Jake, was a pretty important one as far as keeping it off the board. And run prevention in the ballpark like that, in a game like that, a series like that, is about as big as a run scored, and maybe that's an obvious statement, but hey, let me throw it out there anyway.
Yeah, I mean, obviously huge when all these games are coming down to 1 run, any play like that. The Braves, they haven't had the best luck with review in the past. I think it's actually been pretty good so far this year. Not that I think, this one maybe should have been turned over, but definitely the close calls, it feels like everybody goes to replay this year. Some of them are starting to go in the Braves' favor, which is a nice change of pace from what we've seen pretty much ever since replay was instituted. So you'll take that, but heads up play there by Olson, who had a big weekend at the plate, and then just a big play there to cut down a run.
Yeah, we're going to talk all about Matt Olson in just a moment. Before we do that, though, I want to talk about one of our great sponsors here for the Braves Postcast. That, of course, is FanDuel. And this episode of the Braves Postcast is brought to you by FanDuel, because baseball's in full swing and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and join today. FanDuel is the official partner of Major League Baseball, and Major League Baseball trademarks are used with permission. Let's talk a little bit about Matt Olson, because goodness knows he had himself another big hit, another home run for the Braves. His only hit of the day, he also walked, scored a couple of runs, but his 3-run homer that put the Braves on top as it turned out to stay. Just the latest of a slew of big hits for him. 5 for 13, 4 homers, a double in the series, 8 runs batted in, 5 runs scored. For all of those who are asking for Matt Olson to step up with runners on base, Jake, this was the series for that.
Yeah, it certainly was. And big home run there at the end. I don't think Matt thought he got it, but that's just the way this weekend was. And the ball, they get out and they all count. So that was a huge one there. He stepped up. I think he likes hitting in that 4 or 5 spot in the lineup. That seems to have worked out pretty well for him, being able to drive in all these runs. Now tied for the league lead in home runs with Ohtani, just one back of the league lead in RBIs, leading the National League. So obviously Matt Olson getting it done, doing exactly what I think the Braves traded or thought they would get when they traded for him, hitting home runs, driving in runs. That's what you want from Matt Olson, and he is certainly delivering on that for the Braves. An .891 OPS this year. So where, what Matt Olson does really well, he does really, really well. I know there are some limitations to his game. He's not going to have a high average. He's going to strike out some, but he's also going to do things like he did in this series, and that's he can put a team on his back, drive in a bunch of runs, and carry them to a victory.
Yeah, it was great to see that. And congratulations to Matt Olson, who reached a home run milestone during this series with his 200th home run, which came on Saturday. And home run number 201 was a pretty good-looking one, a very important one for Atlanta. And you mentioned it. He's not just leading the National League in homers. He's tied with Shohei Ohtani for the Major League lead there. He's right in the run for most runs batted in all of baseball and lead the National League. He pulled ahead of teammate Ozzie Albies by just a few in this series. But it was great, as you pointed out, just to see Matt Olson be the central figure in what the Braves were doing offensively over the course of this weekend. Another great thing to see in the lineup, besides what Matt Olson was doing all weekend long, was on Sunday. Catcher Sean Murphy was back in there behind the plate, catching for Charlie Morton. He went 2 for 4. He knocked in a run. He caught a curveball that went between the legs of a batter. I don't know that I've seen that too often in my life, but hey, check it out. It's on Twitter if you want to, at Grant McCauley. I retweeted it earlier. But it was just good to see Sean Murphy back there behind the plate, avoiding the injured list and able to be back in and contributing right back in where he fits, which is in this Braves lineup, which is one of the deepest in the National League when he's available. 2 more hits and a run knocked in. This is the Sean Murphy we remember.
It was like he never missed a beat, and big to have him back behind the plate as well. I know the Reds are a team. They're going to steal a lot of bases. They're going to run. It's part of their game, and I love Travis d'Arnaud, and he obviously does a great job at the plate, does a great job calling games, but it's a big difference when Sean Murphy's back there with his arms and not just throwing runners out, but, runners aren't as apt to just try and run when Sean Murphy's back there. So just good to have him back and healthy, and good to see him pick things right back up. 2 hits, 2 hard hit balls, exactly what we've seen from Sean Murphy all year long.
Yeah, the Braves offense in this one, in case you're looking for the breakdown, 3 runs in the 3rd inning, 3 more runs in the 6th. That was the Matt Olson home run. And then a run that came on a bases-loaded walk in the 8th. And who knew at the time? I mean, clearly when you load up the bases, you want to score a run. That turned out to be the one that decided it. It was the 2nd run batted in for Marcell Ozuna on the day, as he finished with a couple of runs knocked in. And Austin Riley, a couple of walks, couple of runs scored, was also involved in this offense. And Ronald Acuna Jr., you expect to hear his name called just about every game because he's always in the middle of something. 2 for 6. He stole his 35th base of the year. He's now just 2 away from matching his career high set in 2019. He scored another run. He leads the majors in that category. Jake, you don't have to talk for a long time about it because I think we've already made our point for 77 games now. Ronald Acuna Jr. is good at baseball, yes?
That he is, yeah. I think he got the most votes. He's going to start in the All-Star game. He is definitely better than last year's version. I don't know why Major League Baseball compared him to last year's version, but I think this is the best version of Ronald Acuna Jr. that we are seeing. And again, just love to see it. We have talked about it for 77 games this year, and I think he had another very good series, had a home run in the series as well, stole a base in every game, so giving you a little bit of everything.
Yeah, how about 85 more games? We'll continue to talk about this, just by the way. For the Braves overall, first team again in the National League to get to 50 wins. So you might have done some simple math to know that they've got the best record in the National League as well, 3rd best in baseball. They're 6 games ahead still of the Miami Marlins in the National League East. We're going to see the Marlins a little bit later this coming week. 10 games ahead of the Phillies, 15 games ahead of the Mets. I don't think I had sized up this division to look quite the way that it looks right now, Jake, but the Braves are simply doing what they need to do. That's winning series after series after series, and they are sizzling hot in the month of June.
And beating up on the NL East as well when they've had those opportunities. And that's obviously, a key into winning the division is to beat the opponents in that division. So, again, taking care of business. We knew this month, just because of the way the schedule lined up, they had an opportunity to get on a run and maybe create some distance in that division. They have done that. The Marlins, though, they continue to win as well. That pitching staff and what they're doing. Yuri Perez, another great game over there, 20-year-old for the Marlins who's pitching really well. So be interesting to see them here at the end of the week.
Yep, it will be a lot of fun, but we got a lot of things to get to before the Miami Marlins roll into town, and that includes 3 games with the Minnesota Twins, the first-place team in the American League Central, then a well-deserved off day for the Braves before the Marlins come to town. Let's get you set up for Game 1 of that series. It's on Monday against Minnesota. Spencer Strider takes the mound against Sonny Gray. Strider, really great performance against Philadelphia last time out. He's 8-2 now on the year, the Major League strikeout leader with 136 of those. Got the ERA back down under 4. Sonny Gray, meanwhile, got off to a real hot start this year, Jake. He's 4-1 on the season, really nice ERA, but hasn't pitched quite as well over the last month or so.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Spencer Strider get back out there after his last start and see if he can build on that. Hopefully this offense continues to hit well. You go from one NL Central leader to the AL Central leader. So should be a lot of fun. I bet the Braves wish if they could make this schedule that Monday would be the off day and not Thursday, just to kind of recover from that weekend in Cincinnati. But again, hopefully this offense just remains hot as it has been in June and really just carrying that pitching staff. But again, want to see Strider give some innings, kind of help out that bullpen, settle things down on the pitching side after they had a pretty rough weekend.
Yeah, would be great to see. Just continue to kind of recharge, if you will. Maybe hit that reset button after a crazy series where the ball flies at a place like Great American Ballpark against a very young and hungry team like the Reds. Come on home and maybe just get back to just some more normal feeling baseball, if that's a thing that we can do here. It's easy to say. Maybe it's a little bit harder to do, but the Braves will certainly be happy to come home for a nice little homestand, even if it's going to be a challenging one with the first place Twins and then the second place Miami Marlins rolling into town after that. Game 1 happens on Monday night, 7:20 p.m. Eastern time as the first pitch for the Braves and the Twins. That will wrap us up here on the Braves Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Go ahead, click the bell to get notified every time we drop a new episode. And, of course, make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcasts. Once again, a 7-6 win for the Braves, who take 2 out of 3 from the Reds in this series. For Jake Mastriani, I'm Grant McCauley, and we will catch you next time. So long, everyone.